Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to Kansas City's global community radio station, KUAW. KUAW. Oh, I'm getting some feedback. Hold on a second here. Um, Welcome to Jessica Lynn Speaks Life on KUAW, Kansas City's global community radio station. I am excited to be here with you today. I have a phenomenal powerhouse guest that is doing wonderful things in the community, across the country, across the globe, okay? Across the globe. Her territory has expanded across the globe, and we are so excited. I am so excited to be a part of her life and her a part of mine. It's amazing how God has brought us together through a common denominator called domestic violence. And so we're going to talk to none other than the infamous epitome of a woman, epitome of a survivor. Okay. Yes, mouth drop, mouth drop, mouth drop. Epitome of a survivor, epitome of a world changer, epitome of the voice of the voiceless, epitome of standing for change for not only domestic violence survivors, but also those that have been affected by social injustice and racial injustice. And Carolyn has jumped on with the Black, Brown, and White Unite for Change, a Facebook group that I founded last July in 2020. And Carolyn is on, and I'm excited. We are sporting our Black, Brown, and White Unite for Change shirts. Let's show them our shirts there. We're sporting our shirts, Black, Brown, and White Unite for Change. You can go to our page on Facebook, Black, Brown, and White Unite for Change. Join us, share. We want to bring the community together to educate and empower, to share stories. And educate is key. Just because it's not happening to you doesn't mean it's not happening. Amen. And we're going to get to that. But first, we want to talk to Carolyn about what's going on. Carolyn is the founder. She's the CEO. She is the brain behind the phenomenal nonprofit 501c3 Safe in Harm's Way Foundation. She is doing a phenomenal work. She is a phenomenal work in her career, does a phenomenal work in her career as well. She's a mother. She's not a grandmother yet, but maybe soon, one day. She is a mother of 3 beautiful children, adult children, and she's just a powerhouse. And so no one can tell about her like her. So Carolyn, what's up, sis?
Okay, first of all, I am going to ask you to please leave that introduction you gave me on a voicemail on my phone so that I can save it and then I can make it my ringtone so that your beautiful words about me are what I hear every time someone calls me on the phone. I mean, you about made me cry. So thank you. Thank you for having me today. Thank you for having me today.
It's all true. It's all true.
You know what I have discovered, and this is a really important thing, what I have discovered since escaping domestic violence is when you eliminate people from your life, the people who make you sad, the people who make you worry, the people who bring you pain, the people that cause fear, when you eliminate them from your life, you leave the most beautiful open spaces for the most genuine, kind, intelligent people who, by the way, don't lie to you, who, by the way, don't put their hands on you, who, by the way, don't issue fear and worry and sadness to you. When you eliminate the toxicity from your life, you would leave the space for someone like you to have come into my world. And I treasure everything about you. I love it when I get a random phone call from Jessica, and sometimes I can answer it and sometimes I can't. But when I don't, she leaves me these voicemail messages that inspire me. I save them. If you look at my phone, I have like all these, Jessica, I just save them on my phone so I can listen to them when I have a bad day. So I'm glad that we're having a conversation today. I'm glad that we're able to talk about what we each do in the world and then how what our actions as women can change the world. And the beauty of what I think we are is just inherently in the fact that we're friends and we partner together on a lot of different initiatives. And I am white and you are black sends a message to the world that listen up, we're about to evoke some change.
Amen.
And I think that's really, really important.
That's so true. It's so true. And you know what? You're white to people, I'm black to people. Actually, some people don't know what I am, but that's key because we're all mixed up with everything.
Right.
You know, I have white in my heritage and Indian, and you clearly with that hair got something, sis.
Well, we looked at, we've looked it up, and my great grandma was black. And
Oh,
all my black girlfriends were like, we told you, we told you. So, yeah, I mean,
I
it's,
love it.
we are all a big mix. And I think it's important for us to know that those components make us human. And when we approach everything from a human standpoint, then we really start to work hard to change the world.
It's good. That's
Yeah.
really, 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 really good. And what I love about humans is we come in all different shades and we come in all different shapes. And you know, when you go to or hear about dressing for success, and they talk about the triangle shape, and they talk about the square shape, and they talk about the cylinder shape. You know, why is it that we weren't taught about the shades?
Yeah.
We're all humans with different shapes of our bodies. We're all humans with different shades of our bodies. So, really and truly, what does it really matter? If you think about how ignorant it is that someone's skin color matters, I mean, that's just the epitome of ignorance to me.
I agree. I agree. And when I have to explain why that's wrong,
Mhm.
mm, that's that's starts to get fired up and ready to go. Because if I have to explain to you that the shades of people shouldn't matter, that the humanness of people matters, ah, that goes down roads that you're going to have some awkward conversations, and
Yeah,
keep having them until you get a chorus of voices talking about the change that's possible in the world.
that's so good. And speaking of chorus of voices, we're going to come back to the race in America and all of that. But let's talk about the chorus of voices. Let's talk about the chorus of voices that have joined together with you with Safe in Harm's Way to make a difference and to provide an outlet for women that are affected by domestic violence, that there is a way of escape.
Mhm.
Talk to us about a way of escape with Safe in Harm's Way.
It's so very fortunate. Never in the 5-year anniversary of me having escaped my abuser was back in March. And I really I've done a lot of content creating about that because of course it's a significant part of my journey. But what has evolved from that point is a beautiful thing that I never would have imagined in a million years could have happened, which is the after of leaving an abuser. And I understand and I know that people can't always escape, right? Some people can't. And so we have to have an online platform, which is what Safe in Harm's Way is. It's an on that allows people to find the resources to properly label what's occurring in your world so that they can find the right pathway in whatever lane of abuse they're navigating. Because I know that some people might never be able to escape. I still want them to have a community. I don't want them to feel alone because I know oftentimes by that time the abuser has issued so much isolation, so much harm that family has walked away. I want them to have a community of people who won't walk away that they can tap into at any time. I want people to know that are there instances where you have to escape in the middle of the night with just what you have on your clothes, your children, and a few things? Yes. The reality is, most people don't leave the first time they were hit or the first time they suffered emotional abuse or verbal abuse. Again, it's hard to find the vocabulary of what you're experiencing. So if you are living in something, why not work with the smartest people in the room to plan your escape? If you're dealing with something on the daily and you know it feels bad, take your time to start planning with the smartest people and find the resources on how to do it. And there are ways that allow people to find the pathway to escaping and then charting a better life. And so it's interesting. I just wrote content about it. Like, please don't scroll past me. Please don't scroll on Facebook or LinkedIn and go, oh my God, there's Carolyn talking about abuse again. Because I need folks to engage. I need folks to realize this is a human issue and that there's the great possibility that you know someone that you would never imagine living through abuse. And when you can create the tools for folks to listen and engage, then maybe they go on to find someone else that they can help as well. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. And two, you know, sometimes people don't feel like they can escape because they have children with this person. My stance on that is the biggest ammunition to escape. You know, because it's not just your life that you have to protect. I mean, we see it over and over and over and over and over. The mom and the children are being murdered. And then sometimes, you know, the abuser is murdering them, it's killing themselves.
Right.
So it's imperative to find a way out. I know that it may not be an overnight thing, but you have to choose how you want to live. You have to choose how you want to live. And do you want to live free from fear, free from abuse? And if you want to live free from fear and abuse, there is help. There's Safe in Harm's Way. There's Giving Hope and Help. There's the National Domestic Violence Coalition. That number is 1-800-799-SAFE, 1-800-799-SAFE. You can go to safeinharmsway.org. You can go to givinghopeandhelp.org. You can go to call the police station if it's not an emergency and ask for help. And you can get confidential help. That's the thing. This whole violence thing with domestic violence is laced with shame. You can't make me believe that's not one of the highest reasons women stay.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And you know, that's interesting. We're trying to be technical here. I'm going to pause just for a second because our lead to Facebook didn't go. So I'm kind of putting my phone doing live that way. We're going, just want to make sure everybody can be seen. Okay, so here's the deal about shame. Even with all the resources, I just this past week got to have a conference call with a woman named Rita who headed the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence for years. She's been working in advocacy for 40 years. 40 years. People don't talk about it. And I'll give you an example. I'll use myself. And I always like to say this. I use the female pronouns because I'm a woman. It's my story. I also realize that this happens to men. I also realize it happens to people who are gender fluid. I don't mean for anyone to disengage from the story because of the pronoun I use. So please understand, anybody listening, that I understand and I know that this is something that crosses all lines, you know, of gender. So when I decided to escape, it took me 10 days to create an escape plan. It took me 9 months to implement it. When I decided that the only way I could implement it, because I felt as if I was losing my mind, was to reach out to my family, my 3 favorite cousins, and tell them what was happening and say, how can you help me? And it was so horrific. And the level of abuse was so significant by the time I spoke up that their reply was, has someone hacked your email? I got texts. Did you really send this email? Is this really happening to you? Because I had not spoken up for so long. I had not said anything for so long that by the time I did speak up, I was so shame-filled and it was so horrific. People had a hard time believing what had happened. And rightfully so, right? Because you work really hard to craft an outside facade to the world because you're crumbling on the inside. And I tell you what, my Thanksgiving table was beautiful. And so was every Christmas because, gosh darn it, that was all going to look great if I was rotting from the inside out. So what Safe and Harm's Way does, and I look at you and what you do with Giving Hope and Help, we start discussions and we have community that allows people to know they are not alone in the world. So anytime someone shares their story, another person feels less alone. And if you think that the 1 in 3 statistics for women or the 1 in 4 statistics for men as it relates to domestic violence are, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's that much. I'm telling you, it's more because you factor in shame. People don't talk about it. And that's one thing we started doing that we're going to be doing differently at Safe and Harm's Way. When we give talks and presentations, we're doing feedback report, which we always do, but we're changing how we go to feedback. Because when I did a small little sample of 300 women I know and asked them, and these are CEOs, these are doctors, these are lawyers, 90% had been affected by violence, domestic violence. 90% of 300 high functioning, well adjusted, hiding the bruises from home to try to get along in the world, 90% had experienced some form of abuse. So we're going to take those statistics and I am shifting it on its ears because I am not staying quiet. Life is beautiful. Life is amazing. Like my kids will say, Mom, does it ever bother you when people talk about how lucky you are and how amazing your life is and you have love and you have friends and you have travel? I said, no, because I want everybody to know you can crawl through the muck. You can still heal enough to talk about what it was. You can work to hold the perpetrator accountable. And in the interim, live a life that at Safe and Harm's Way, we like to call platinum platter life, which means only the best people, the best experiences. Remember I talked at the beginning, you remove the toxicity from your relationships and the most beautiful people show up. They have, honey, in spades. And so you have to keep talking about it and know that you can move forward and heal and have the most wonderful love of your life. The most amazing people come forward. It's all possible at the same time of healing, and the same time living an after that you're worthy of.
That's so awesome. What a powerful story. What a powerful message. I want to pause right here. And if you're not tuned in and you're tuning in later, or if you see this, in the midnight hour and you stumble across this and you are in an abusive relationship, I want you to know to be encouraged because Carolyn and myself are both survivors and we just made a simple decision. It starts with the decision. Don't worry about anything else. When you go to college, you have a curriculum that you have to complete for your degree. You have to take this many courses here, this many courses there, this many courses there. But in the beginning, you take your general education courses, right? You take your histories and your maths and you get all of the English composition out of the way. Because then once you finish that, you move on up to the major. Okay, I don't want you to major in what might happen. Don't go straight to the major. Let's start right here with our general desire to be free. Don't look past that. Don't go past. Just go right here. I want you to know and say to yourself, I want to be free from bondage. I want to be free from abuse. If that is you, if you want to be free from the abuse, if you want to be free, don't worry about anything else in the majors. Don't worry about the kids. Don't worry about the bills. Don't worry about the car. Don't worry about the house. No, don't worry about any of that. Don't worry about the job. Don't worry. Just right here where you are. Because truth be told, none of that stuff will flourish and prosper if you right here don't get past your general desires. Yep. And everyone has the right to live free. Everyone has the right to be happy. And even if you're not happy sometimes, life brings ups and downs. So no, life is not all peaches and cream. Carolyn has a beautiful life. I have a beautiful life. Do I experience depression or do I experience bad days? Not so much depression as a mental thing, but yes, some days I do not feel well, right? Some days I don't feel like it. Yeah, some days we don't feel like talking.
Don't. My dear friend Kathy is on watching now. I can see that she's on the chat and she called me last week and I was just having a tearful moment. And she said, what's wrong? I said, I don't know why. I'm just sad right now. Just sad.
And it's okay.
And that's okay. I mean, as
Yeah.
great as it is, and I think that's such an important part of the story. And I'm so glad you brought it up, Jessica, because I think folks think, well, wait a minute, I should be past this. And I am, and it's great. But there are still days. There are days when I think, oh my God, what if he's doing this to another woman? Wow. What would I do if I knew who she was? What would I do? Nothing. I keep working on safe and harm's way so that I know.
You just keep moving.
I
You
can't
just keep
even think
moving.
about that. And then I don't say I don't care because I don't know what he's doing right now. And I really don't care. I'm like Switzerland. I don't care if anything really good happens to him. And I also don't care if anything really bad happens to him. I don't care. But there are times that I think, oh, that level of evil is significant. That makes me sad. And I can bounce back, you know, and I
how
can
do you bounce
use all my
back?
tools and bounce back. But it's important to know that if you're navigating abuse, I love what you said about the majors, just get through your gen ed classes and then build that network and take the next class and take the next class and the next small step. If I had planned out everything I needed to plan out to escape, I never would have escaped. I had a basic plan.
But your plan began with what? A decision.
A decision.
And that's where I want people to start. I have a saying, do your best and God will do the rest. Whether you're a believer in God or not, if you do your best, that's all anybody can ask for.
Agreed.
That's all you can give is your best. So if you're giving your best to others, why not give yourself a chance?
True. Yep.
Why not give yourself a chance? Because life is full of ups and downs. Why choose to live it on the down?
Right. Right. Exactly.
Goes back to, you know, we have a beautiful life, but yes, we experience bad days. We experience low days. We experience emotional days because that is life. That is being a human being. But I don't want to choose to live in misery ever again.
No, never.
Ever again. Misery is just not a good decision. And if you're in it, I understand. But I'm asking you to make a decision today because tomorrow is not promised. We only have this moment in time. That's all we have is just this very moment. And so we have to make a decision on how we want to live. It's just that simple. Then once you've decided, okay, I want to live free. I want to live free. Then that's when you begin to start reaching out to resources. And so now we're moving into another level of killing the shame. Because in order for you to get help, what has to happen? Carolyn had to forget about shame when she shared it with her family. She had to forget about what other people think because she was reaching out for help. So once you get to a crossroads, that's when you know you're ready. That's when you know you're ready. If you're still making excuses for your abuser, you're not ready. And guess what? You may no longer have chances to continue to make abuses because you may no longer be here.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think that's escalation of violence. It starts off small because let's be honest, abuse does not start out as abuse. Abuse starts out as love. Abuse starts out as flowers. It starts out as poetry. It starts out as handwritten cards. And then slowly over time, it morphs into little tiny things, so tiny that you don't even notice it. You know, you don't even realize. Maybe it's money suddenly is missing from accounts, and I think you must have made a mistake on the checkbook. And I don't think I did, right? And this is your fault, right? I remember coming home one day, and he had gotten home from work right after me, and I said, "Oh, love, I missed you. I didn't get a chance to talk to you all day." And he was like, "What the hell am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to stop working?" I said, "All I said was I missed you. I didn't say, why didn't you call me? Or I can't believe you didn't." I said, all I said was, this is all your fault, Carolyn. This is just what you do. I come in the door and you start complaining at me. And I'm going, I didn't complain. I just said I missed you.
That was a compliment, actually.
Yeah, I just said I missed you, you know? And then, well, this is just you. This is all you. And then you start really to believe, well, what's wrong with me? Like, why did I say that? When it just was meant as a genuine love, right? But you start to question every single thing because they're telling you that. And that's what happens with the cycle of abuse. So, and I can give you a perfect description of it, right? So the abuse would get so bad. If you've been my friend on Facebook for 10 years, maybe you remember this, maybe you don't. Maybe somebody looks at it or doesn't. You can tell when the abuse was worst. I would get off Facebook because I felt as if I was perpetrating a facade, that how dare I get on Facebook and talk about how wonderful life was when it was rotting from the inside. When I got back on, it was because he started to love bomb me because I had started to scratch at the surface of what the abuse was and push back. So when someone who's experiencing abuse says, okay, things aren't good, we either get counseling or I leave, or you start to try to navigate it, well, then the abuser, all you've done is tip your hand to them and say, I've started to figure out what's happening. And the abuser throws in more roses, throws in more love bombs, plans a trip for just the two of you, says, let me dress you, get all dressed up, let me go out to eat. And life gets better until that cycle starts again. Until I folded the towels the wrong way and come home, and he comes home from work and throws them all on the floor and rants and raves because I'm so stupid, I don't know how to fold a towel correctly. And that love bomb phase starts to get smaller, and the abuse phase starts to get bigger. And that's how escalation occurs. So when someone says, which is a question that a lot of people hate, but I don't mind, why didn't you just leave? Let me tell you how abuse starts. It didn't start that way. It started as 2 years of a year and a half. Now, were there little things in there that I can look back on now and go, oh, that was abuse. That was abuse. Yeah, like the time he took me on my very first trip, I got all dressed up and I came downstairs and he said, you kind of look like a whore. And I said, I'm sorry, what? He goes, I'm just kidding. God, you can't even take a joke. That was the start, right? Then I'm defending myself for not being able to take a joke. When actually, who in their right mind, when they're trying to court somebody, pays a compliment that says you look like a whore? Right?
And let me stop right there. Let me stop you right there when we're talking about what you just described as verbal abuse.
Yes, but
and it doesn't even have to escalate to physical. That is verbal abuse, and abuse is abuse. So we want to talk about too. I want to hear you talk about adding in, not only did you suffer verbal, mental, and physical, but I was verbal and emotional. So there is no one better than the other.
No, and you know what, the verbal, the emotional that are just as deep as any physical. It really does.
Because you have to constantly change the words that were in your mind and put on you.
Right.
You have to constantly change the channel. Change the channel to whatever you're listening to. You have to change the channel to I am worthy. I am worthy. More than just you wants me. Will want me. You're not the end all.
Oh, honey.
The last man standing. Okay.
A lot better than you. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I recently moved. And so I just finally, after 5 years, got some of the things in storage. I have 2 storage units filled with things. So I just was finally able to get out there. And I wondered if I would come across anything that was going to make me sad. And I actually found a diary during the most parts of the years that were the most abusive. And instead of being sad, and I wondered, should I read it? And I thought, I'm going to read it. I was so proud of myself because inherent in there was, he keeps saying I'm stupid. He keeps saying I'm wrong. I know I'm smart. And then I would write all the ways I was smart. I know that I have confidence, and I would write all the ways I was confident. So while I couldn't label that what he was doing to me as abuse, because I just thought he's my toughest customer, right? I'm great at my job. I have tons of friends that I've had since 3 years old. They all love me. And instead of looking at it and going, if he's the one person in the world putting me down, he's the one person in the world who should be out of my life. I look at it, when you're smart, when you don't lose, when you're empathetic, you look at it and say, well, if I just act better and show him how to love, he'll love me. If I just show him by example how good I am as a parent, he'll be a good parent. If my former husband used to get his kids Christmas presents. If I just show him how my former husband can act kind to his children, he'll act kind to his children. Never what's going to happen. Not ever. So knowing your feelings, knowing the sadness, knowing that's the precursors to realizing if this person who claims to love me also makes me sad, that's a problem. If this person who claims to love me also makes me cry by what he says to me, that's a problem. If this person who also claims to love me hides finances from me, that's a problem. All of that are problems. If you can't label abuse, but you can label your feelings associated with how the person who claims to love you also treats you, honey, a better person will take their place when you leave them from the world. Every time.
And when you make up your mind on how you want to live, that's the key thing. Oftentimes, one of the factors that people don't want to leave, they don't want to leave, is they don't want to be alone. They would rather have, a piece of a man than no man, or a piece of a partner than no partner. And I say man too, because I am a female and I'm heterosexual, but this could be any gender. It's very important for you to know that you're enough. You're enough alone. You're enough alone. And once you make up your mind to live happy, you won't be alone long.
Right.
You won't be alone long. But you've got to go through the general steps, the baby steps. And the first one is saying how you want to live. That is just flat out the blueprint of freedom. The beginning of the blueprint, or the first step in the blueprint of freedom, is saying to yourself how you want to live. I personally don't believe anyone wants to live in violence.
No.
I believe that people were born into it. People were bred into it. It's people's everyday lives. Some people like to fight because that is their love language, because that's the way they were raised in it. But they really don't want to live that way. Who really wants to live that way? Not even in the movies do they want to live that way. So, it's everybody wants a piece of happiness, and everyone deserves the right to pursue happiness. And so we're going to tell you right now, if you are in a situation, a relationship where you are being treated less than, verbally abused, physically abused, mentally abused, controlled in any form or fashion, what you're wearing, controlling over that, whatever it is, controlling the finances in the relationship or marriage. You can only spend this much on groceries and you better not spend a dime over. That's financial abuse.
It is.
There's all different types.
Let's add.
I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't?
Now I can.
Better?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's add in another layer of that. And this is important. People think of sexual violence as rape. Truth, it is. What else falls under sexual violence? Coercion. If someone keeps asking you to have sex and you don't want to, and you keep saying no, and they force you to do it, some folks don't look at that as rape, especially if you're married.
It is.
But it is. You know
Yes.
what else is? When someone presents themselves to you as a heterosexual, you said, I'm heterosexual, this is my story. If someone presents themselves to you as monogamous and heterosexual, and they are not monogamous, and they also sleep with men, that is sexual abuse, because you as a person are making choices to have a sexual relationship with someone who is presenting themselves as heterosexual and monogamous, and they are not.
Which is another form of control.
It is another form of control. So, and you may not know about that, right? And so you may leave that relationship and you discover that this person has an entire secret life. You need to know that what you went through was sexual coercion and sexual violence, and you can seek the resources to help yourself heal from that. That's all part of it. If someone is saying to you, oh, sweet pea, I love you and I love only you and let's dream together and let's travel the world. And meanwhile, they're having sex with everybody who comes along. Not cool.
Betrayal,
Not
control.
cool. And it's all part of it. And I think people don't recognize the dynamics of that as abuse, right? Because what abusers will come along. I am on several groups, and there was a woman that said, well, gosh, maybe if I did more of what he wanted in bed, maybe he would be better. I'm like, honey, this is beyond you. This is him. This is him issuing abuse. This is abuse, right?
And there's nothing you can do to fix it. I don't care how nice you are. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care. There is absolutely nothing you can do to fix that piece of a person that's broken.
Right.
They are the only ones that can fix that, not you.
Right. And that's so important to know. And it's so important to seek those resources, in my discovery. And actually I have a book that's coming out, and there are so many layers of my particular story and abuse that I have not told because it's pretty horrific. And I'm telling it in this book. I'm telling it because I know there are more women like me. I know that there are women sitting in silence who discovered that the person who claimed to love them and be monogamous and be heterosexual was anything but. And you have to recognize that as abuse and take the proper steps to heal from it. And so in my book, when I tell a part of the story, I'll label it. And this is sexual coercion. And here are the resources you need in order to get over it. And this is, I just label it out. And so the book is filled with a whole back page of resources and next steps and websites so that folks can find the right, label the vocabulary again, and find the right resource to heal from that level of abuse. And I got to tell you, this fear of looking at, my gosh, are people going to look at me as damaged goods? Is anyone going to love me again? Oh, honey, they're going to think you're a rock star.
Absolutely.
Whether you're a man seeking, who's been abused and wants to build a relationship, or you're a woman, who's been abused and wants to rebuild a relationship, there has yet to be a man I have found that doesn't think you are so completely awesome. And that is the same thing that can happen to you. So don't let that shame again come in and keep you from healing with the attitude of who's going to love me. People are going to love you.
Well, the thing of it is you have to love yourself. You got to love yourself.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, the healing has to happen. It has to happen, or you repeat yourself, and that's the worst, not to heal yourself and repeat it again. But that healing has to happen. But I want people to know that within that healing that has to happen, and within that shame that you can get over, to your point, we're now at a graduate level class because you've taken the gen ed of healing yourself. You've taken the gen ed of deciding of what kind of life you want to live. You've taken the gen ed to put yourself out in the world. And now you're at the 400 level classes where you're implementing what you learned, and you're in your zone because you've gotten all the prerequisites out of the way.
Out of the way. The prerequisite is tell yourself how you want to live.
Mm-hmm.
That's step number one. Step number two is getting the resources to support how you want to live. And those resources will support your freedom.
Exactly.
And one thing that I say is getting over it. I try to transform the term getting over it to getting set free from it. Because when we get over it, are we really over it? Are we set free from it? So that's something to think about, because it may have happened many years ago, and people say, "Oh, that happened so many years ago. Get over it." No, you cannot tell another person the time frame to get over grieving of a parent or grieving of a loved one. There is no time. Everybody is different. And so that's why I try to take getting over it out of my vocabulary and replace it with getting set free from it.
I love that.
I'm set free from the pain. Carolyn, you're set free from the pain. So now you can go before anybody and share your story.
Right.
That is a key sign that you are set free. Are you over it? No, you're not over it, because you're still dealing with the repercussions of the abuse. You're still, and I am still changing the channel in my voice. I text you at 11 something the other night, text you something, sitting up thinking about an abusive situation that I went through, and text you, that was the hardest thing I ever did.
Right. Right.
So no, I'm not over it.
Right.
Because if I was over it, I would never remember it ever happened.
Exactly.
So when you say you're over it, you are erasing your raw life experience, your good situations, your bad situations. All of those experiences create your raw life story.
Yep. Yep.
So we want to go towards freedom of abuse. And if you want to grab our hand and go there with us, we will be happy to. Carolyn says it so well. Say that what you say.
We always say that safe in harm's way. We say, join us. Come take our hand, please. Let's go change the world.
Let's go change the world. And what I love about your story is that you share your story so that it can benefit others. I believe that when we go through pain, it is always for purpose.
I agree.
When we go through tribulation and trial, it's always for testimony.
It is.
If we're still standing and breathing, God will get the glory out of it by us sharing and helping someone else. And you never know how your story and just sharing
agreed
may inspire someone. Like I was saying, someone may see this next week, someone may see this next year. That's the beauty of social media and the World Wide Web, is that I don't know when someone may see this, but it could change someone's life. And so I want to inspire you that if you're going through anything, if you're going through abuse specifically, make a decision on how you want to live and go forth with the resources to get you to your end result. The little mazes that you filled out in the fun pads when we were growing up, the little fun pad books. I love those mazes.
I did too. I love to connect the dots.
Yes,
because they
connect
made a
the dots.
picture. I think it's the same thing. Start connecting the dots of your life of where you want it to go, and all of a sudden you're gonna look at it and go, "Well, that's pretty darn cool."
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And so, you may be in a bad situation, but it will not last always if you take control of you. Don't worry about anything else but this moment, what you want to change and what you can change in this moment.
And let's add one thing. If you decide to share your story with someone and they shame you about your story, they talk to another person. Don't stop. And I know it's hard. Between lawyers and doctors and the FBI and sharing my story over and over, I was like, I would break out. I remember being in an airport bathroom and I was covered in hives, like purple welts, head to toe, because I was having a panic attack. And this woman stopped me and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll vomit in about 5 minutes and I'll be all right." And she looked at me like, "So when you talk about those parts of healing through, I can talk to a story now without vomiting and without hives." And if I had shared myself with the wrong person and I had stopped because that person didn't respond how they could have or should have, then share with somebody else. Get to the next best person to share your story, to get to the next best resource.
And to get to the next level of freedom. So you've gone from shame to freedom. And I'm truly, truly excited to hear that. We want to not die with our gifts.
Right.
We don't want to live this world with our gifts in our pocket.
Right.
We want to share those gifts. And if you're living in any type of shame or abuse, it's impossible for you to reach your full destiny. It just absolutely is. And so it's up to you how you want to live and take control of your life. We're talking about violence. We're going to transition into Black, Brown, and White Unite for Change. It takes all of us, even for domestic violence. It takes all of us to stand up and be a support. And so I want to talk a little bit now about changing the systemic racism that is in the institutions of America. Wow. That's a lot, and we'll never have enough time. So this conversation will always be continued. It's not going to change. This conversation is going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to make an impact and open the eyes of those that are not affected. I believe personally that it will not change until the privileged see that their voice will make a change if they use it for equality and social justice and diversity and inclusion, for everyone, for all humans, for all mankind. I think it's the epitome of ignorance to have had whites only and blacks only signs and water fountains and restaurants and slavery. Let's just go back. We got to go back, because this didn't just start, now. This has been going on for centuries. How Africans were brought to America and brought on the Mayflower, which is a ship, in there like sardines, and no one that could speak the same language was next to each other, because that was the first thing that they wanted to do, was kill any type of unity. And I do believe that plays a big role in violence today. Wow. Yeah. So the people were in the Mayflower, stacked side by side, no clothes, feces, regurgitation, everything. You're on the sea. It took about a month to get from Africa to America back in the 1600s. And they, brought the people to the states, Virginia, and slavery was just legal. It was legal. And so if you take hundreds of years of oppression on a race, how is it possible that race be on the same playing field? It's not possible. So the view of people with brown skin and black skin and dark skin in America is they fear that. It's really just hatred. And it's going to take all of us, my white sisters. We don't need you to feel sorry. We don't need you to say that was back then. We need you to understand how it affects us even yet today. As a Black mom, my biggest fear and my biggest prayer is that they don't kill my son, my dad, my brother, my husband, my family members, my non-family members. Because truth be told, George Floyd was my son, my brother. Tamir Rice was my son. Breonna Taylor was my sister, my niece, my cousin.
It's I always love when you call me up and say, would you come talk about this with me? If we do it together just because we're having a conversation, or we do it like we are right now on radio, it's important. It's important because talking about lives mattering is vital to the conversation. And that conversation can be awkward, right? But as a white woman, I think it's my duty and my job in one-on-one to have those conversations. And in my world, it's my belief. I love your group. I love your group, what it does at Facebook, because it's Black women, it's brown women, it's white women uniting to evoke change, and men in there, jump in, guys. But we are working together to honor and lift up the humanness in all of us. If I see someone, or I'm having a conversation with someone, I look at it as my job to say, let's have an awkward conversation about what you just said. Because what I'm hearing is that you're making judgments against people because of the color of the skin, and you're okay with that. That's a problem. And I also have to acknowledge when I have conversations with people of color that I am bold enough that if I say something wrong, that I'm willing to listen to what is said. And I have to understand that because my experience is different from yours, that doesn't mean yours doesn't happen, which shocks me. I mean, when I read things that people say, well, I just don't get that because it's never happened to me. Your skin is white. I mean, I'm trying to watch right now that I don't use a curse word. Your skin is white. Why would that ever happen to you?
Right.
And I look at the men of color that I love and that I hold dear to my heart. And I think, oh my God, please be careful. Please be careful. I don't worry about that when my sons drive. I don't worry about it. And if we can't, as humans, realize that because an experience is different than what you have had in your own world, doesn't negate the experience of those who have lived it. And if you haven't heard it, and if you haven't heard it before, it's because you haven't asked your Black friends or you don't have any Black friends.
Wow.
So don't, from your standpoint, negate something because of your own viewpoint, because of the color of your skin. And you can't, I think, without realizing it. I had a conversation, and I'll be careful because I don't want to say names, but I had a conversation with a couple friends, and there was one friend who was very fine with the fact that she grew up racist, that her family was I mean, could name it. We this is what we do. This is what I was taught. This is generational. And I was like, and I'm just finding this out about you, right? And so another friend chimed in because I'm starting to get a little bit antsy. And my friend chimes in and says, you know, I have to realize that as a white woman who lives in a predominantly white community, that when and if a Black person drove through my neighborhood, I guarantee you every one of my neighbors would call the police because we don't live around Black people. And if I can't realize that that's a problem, I'm part of the problem. And even part of the problem, and that simple not realizing it is part of the problem.
Yes.
And so thankfully she spoke up and she's like, you have to know that's a problem. You have to know that I know that happens is a problem. And if I don't see that as a problem, I'm part of it. I'm part of it.
Well, if you're not part of the solution, you're definitely more than
part of the problem, you know?
Yeah.
It's not, it's part, and I have I've said often, my family business, for the majority of a good chunk of people I love in my family are police officers. They look at these instances and they're horrified at what happens. And just because I want to support Black Lives Matter does not mean I'm saying blue lives don't.
Exactly.
I'm not saying that. I just, the thought that is even brought up as a thing, one does not beget the other. I can't say, oh my gosh, everybody's right now is talking about, violence against people in the Asian community. Wait, women have been suffering violence for years. Why aren't they talking about that? It doesn't negate the work I do in domestic violence. It raises the volume on what happens with the color of your skin and how the world reacts to you because of it. One does not negate the other. It raises the volume on what, as a society, we got a lot of work cut out for us.
We've got a lot of work cut out for us. And what I want to say too is, people say all lives matter. No, they don't.
Not to the extent of the equality.
No, they do not.
Nope.
All lives have never mattered. And if they did, there would have never been slavery legalized. There would never have been lynchings legalized. Emmett Till may be live today, 14-year-old murdered brutally in Mississippi for so-called whistling at a white woman, which she lied. She later came back and recanted that. She lied. We've been living with this open season on Black and brown people for centuries, and it will not stop until the killers are held accountable and until the whites that are privileged stand up and speak up against it. The ones that it's not happening to, they have to stand up and join forces with us to change the world.
Right, right. And let's talk about that for a second, that word privilege. I think that sets some people on fire. Like, well, I had to work at what I got and I had to do that. Honey, I know you did.
Let me break down privilege to you.
The privilege is that you don't have to worry about certain things because of the color of your skin. That's a privilege. That's a privilege. You may not like the context of that word, but the reality is you have a privilege that other people have to worry about constantly.
Absolutely. Growing up, I knew that there was places in the city that I wouldn't go. We knew it as Black people. We don't go there. To this day, we know that. To this day, we know that. The problem with this new generation, they're not fearful. And so they're going anywhere they want to go, and they should, because this is a free country. The problem is when they get to these areas where they don't belong, like your friend said, everyone would call the police because we don't have any Blacks in this area. So that Black doesn't live here. That is racism. That is hate. It's systemic hate in the DNA of America. Because if you look at anyone and say, well, they shouldn't be over here, what are they doing over here? You're racist. Because this is a free country.
Exactly. And think about all the communities, the gentrification of communities that have been replaced and houses, torn down and built up. And then all of a sudden, someone who's lived on that street for generations, the cops are being called on that person because that person looks different than all the people who've come in and rebuilt their houses. That person's lived there for decades.
My home, we've lived here for 5 generations. I know exactly what you're talking about. We are literally almost out of time. I love this conversation. This conversation will be continued. Carolyn, it has been everything having you on the show. It always is. I love it. Always, always, always. I love what you bring to the table. I love what you stand for. I love what you speak out against. And I love the work that you do. And that's why I've taken your hand so we can do this thing together. As far as the Black, brown, and white unite for change, it's going to take all of us. It's going to take those conversations that you've had, Carolyn, with your friends. And you know what? You're going to lose more friends. I know that you've lost friends, a few. But here's the thing. They were never your friends from Jump Street. So, so we're going to move forward and we're going to change the world. I'm excited for what is to come. If you want to reach Carolyn and Safe in Harm's Way, tell them where they can reach you, Carolyn.
Safe in Harm's Way is everywhere. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We even have Spotify because we love to dance. We're on YouTube. You can send an email to info@safeinharmsway.com and you can reach us that way. You can send an email to or a message to our inbox. I want to call it to action. We have a Smart Warrior program, which is our social media action response team. You can send a message to Safe in Harm's Way and our SMART team. You can be a part of that where we create the content for you and you share it on your own personal pages. You don't have to do a thing but copy and share so that you can start to drive awareness around what needs to happen as it relates to domestic violence. So reaching out to us at info@safeinharmsway starts that process to get you connected as a Smart Warrior and gets you also the resources you need should you need them.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. I want to end with something that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, or that he did to change the world. He changed the world with his voice, not with a gun and not with violence. Join us as we change the world, lifting our voices, speaking our truths. Jessica Lynn Speaks Life is what you've been tuned to. I'm excited that you were here. I hope that this show has done something for you, or you can share it with someone else. And we'll see you back here on the first and third Sunday of the month from 5 to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Be blessed.
Thank you.